Hi, everyone. This is Barbara Robertson, and I'm with All Things Breastfeeding, our podcast about happenings in the breastfeeding world. And today I have another special guest with me. We've had a lot of guests on our podcast recently. This is near and dear to my heart because not only are we doing this podcast, but Dr. Helen Ball and I are going to be doing a book group. We'll get into more details in fall of 2026. We're going to do it live and then it'll be available self-study. So let me introduce our guest. So Dr. Helen Ball, she's a professor of anthropology and director of the Infancy and Sleep Center, DIS. Do they call it DISC?
Disc, that's
Okay,
it.
they
Yeah.
do. Love our acronyms. At Durham University, she founded BASIS, the Baby Sleep Information Source, in 2012 as an outreach project of DISC, for which she was awarded the Queen's Anniversary Prize for Further and Higher Education in 2018. Her research examines the sleep ecology of infants and their parents, including attitudes and practices regarding infant sleep and their sleep safety, behavioral and physiological interactions of the infants and their parents during sleep, infant sleep development, and the discordance between cultural and biological sleep needs. Absolutely. Much of her research is focused on bed sharing and breastfeeding. She has conducted research in the hospitals, the community, and her lab, and she contributes to the national and international policy and practice guidelines in infant care. She currently serves as the member of the Lullaby Trust Scientific Advisory Group and the UNICEF UK Baby Friendly Initiative Qualifications Board. In 2025, her popular science book, How Babies Sleep, was published by Penguin Random House UK and the Grand Central Publishing in the US. So, welcome, Helen, to our podcast. And we're going to talk more about your book in a minute. But before we get to that and the book group, tell me a little bit about how you got here. Well, how did you get
Ah,
interested in infant sleep, which has really been your focus? So tell us about that.
okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's nice to
Oh,
be
you're
here.
welcome.
And yeah, well, I started my career as well, I did an undergraduate degree in biology and then a master's degree in anthropology, and then I combined them for my PhD in biological anthropology.
Mm-hmm.
And what I studied for my PhD was primate behavior. I actually chased monkeys around on an island off of the coast of Puerto Rico for a couple of years and studied male-female interactions. And after I finished my PhD, I had my first daughter, and then pretty quickly afterwards got a job over back in the UK, which is where I grew up, at Durham University. And it wasn't a huge stretch of the imagination to figure out that trying to maintain a primate field site on the other side of the world while I was in the UK with a 1-year-old was going to be really feasible. So I thought I'm going to have to think hard here about what I'm going to do for academic research during this next phase of my life while I'm having kids and I'm in the UK. Um, and I'd already read some of Jim McKenna's work while I was pregnant with my first.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of remembered about this when I was thinking about the kind of research that I could do. And
Mm-hmm.
he'd been a primatologist. And
Oh,
I thought,
interesting.
yeah, and I thought,
Okay.
we have the same kind of training. So I know what he's doing when he's doing these sleep studies. I could do that, and nobody does any research like this in the UK. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll think of some questions that I could answer that he's
Mm-hmm.
not been looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it all started, was trying to figure out how I could study mother baby sleep, um, kind of in northeast England, so that I didn't have to traipse halfway across the world to do research.
Wow. So A, I didn't know that you studied primates, and then B, I didn't know Dr. James McKenna studied primates. It makes complete sense. So
Hmm.
when you
Hmm.
thought about this, we this is like off-roading. This isn't part of what I was thinking about asking you, but now I'm like, oh, I'm intrigued. Um, so what questions did you think about that he hadn't addressed that you thought would be interesting to explore or explore further?
Hmm. Well, what I was particularly, well, so he was interested, he'd got this hypothesis that he was testing really about arousals during sleep and mothers and babies being in synchrony and causing mutual arousals and that being protective for sudden
Hmm.
infant death.
Right.
Um, Whereas what my personal experience of infant sleep had been about bed sharing for breastfeeding,
Hmm.
and the relationship between breastfeeding and bed sharing. So then I wondered, well, what motivates other women
Hmm.
to sleep with their babies, and does it matter does what motivates them to do it, or the reasons that they do it affect how they do it?
Mm.
Um, and so that's what I set out exploring. And when I first started, people would say, well, I don't know how you're going to study bed sharing in the UK because nobody does it here.
Right.
So that was my first question was, well, do people do it here?
Right.
I suspect they do, but they
Right.
don't talk about it. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what we found.
Right.
So,
It's become so demonized
mhm.
in many parts of the world. Many other parts of the world, it's considered the
It's
norm.
completely normal. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And when we
exactly.
do, when you read the book, How Babies Sleep, and we have our book group, that's we're going to talk about that, how the history and how it's come to where
Hmm.
it has come in Western societies.
Yeah, yeah.
Because yeah, it's here in the United States, it's pushed underground. And so we
Mm,
have many families not being truthful with their healthcare providers because
absolutely.
they're afraid of the fallout, the
Hmm.
possible ramifications. And especially in our public health system, this has been a real concern. Well, I'm so glad that you were too far from the primates in Puerto Rico and it's pushed you down this path because it's what you have created has is such an invaluable resource. So talk a little bit before we get into the book, talk a little bit about the basis site and how
Okay.
that came to be. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, if you just Google BASIC,
SIS, basis,
SIS,
BASIS.
basis, and then infant sleep. It will pop up
Hmm.
right for you, and it's got lots of things there. So talk about how the site came to be and what you're hoping it might provide for folks.
Okay. So that we decided to create the basis site in about 2010. So that was after I'd been working on
Mhm.
infant sleep for about 15 years. And I think the work that we'd been doing was getting pretty well known in at least in the UK. And we used to get lots of questions from health practitioners. How do I talk to this mom about this? Or what should I say about this? Or do you have any research about this?
Mhm.
And so we were we were creating lots of template emails because a lot of the questions end up being quite
Right.
similar.
Yeah.
And at some point, we were like, you know what? We should just put all of this online so that people can find it. And then they don't have to keep emailing us and we don't have to
Right.
keep sending out, loads of answers.
Right.
So I applied for some funding from one of the research councils in the UK to do exactly that and the intention was for it to be for health practitioners and parents. And
Mhm.
in the first instance, it had sort of two sets of pages. One, if you were a health practitioner, which gave you all the details and the references and everything, and
Mhm.
another if you were a parent.
Mhm.
But we've streamlined it over time because we saw that the hits on the detailed side weren't very high and everybody was just looking at the summaries.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, but in 2012 we launched it. We worked with a graphic designer and everything to make it look nice, and we launched it. And in the first instance, we didn't call it BASIS.
Mhm.
We started calling it the Infant Sleep Information Source.
Mhm.
So the acronym was ISIS.
Oh,
And
right.
about a year after we launched it,
I forgot. I forgot that that change
yeah,
happened. Yeah. You were like, oh,
yeah, other people kept going, I don't know whether
yeah.
you should be calling it ISIS. And I'm like,
Right. Right.
well,
Was not conveying the message that you were hoping for. So,
exactly. So
yeah.
eventually we got some more funding and we rebranded it and we called it the Baby Sleep Information Source instead of the
Yeah.
Sleep Information Source. So
Yep.
that's how it became Basis, and it was
Mhm.
after it became Basis, or it was about around about the same time that we got that Queen's Award prize for it, which was
Mhm.
amazing, really.
Yeah, that sounds important, like a big award.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like, one thing that an academic in a university in the UK has done gets singled out for their
Hmm.
university to win a prize. And so that felt really special, and we got to go and swan around at Buckingham Palace wearing our academic gowns and all of that kind of stuff.
Oh,
So
fun.
that was a lot of fun. But
Hmm.
I think that what we were trying to accomplish with BASIS or ISIS in the first place was to get information out to parents and health practitioners about what we viewed as kind of like biologically normal baby
Yeah,
sleep, which basically means the sleep of breastfed babies.
yeah, right.
Because most of the sleep information and sleep studies that are published have not considered infant feeding in the mix at all. And it is so important
Hmm.
to know how a baby's feeding when you're trying to understand what's happening with their sleep.
Right.
So we wanted to sort of foreground what the sleep of breastfed babies was like, and breastfeeding mums, and how to understand what was going on with feeding and sleeping. So
Yeah.
that was our.
I always talk about what's anthropologically appropriate
Mm-hmm,
for human babies,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because we've lost that. We've really
Yeah,
lost that.
definitely.
I
Mm-hmm.
think of our babies who are born and they expect one thing, and then what is delivered is something very
Something
different.
completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And so we're going to talk in depth again in the book group about this. So why this book, How Babies Sleep Now? And what
Mhm.
was your inspiration to put it all in a book?
I had resisted
Mm,
requests to write a book for many years.
mm-hmm,
Um, I felt maybe, misguidedly, I don't know, but I felt that my job was to be a researcher and was to advance our understanding of infant sleep and
mm-hmm,
the sleep of mothers and babies or parents and babies. Um, and if I was in this kind of position where I could devote a lot of time to doing research, that's what I should be doing.
mm,
Um, so I always prioritized writing the academic papers and doing the research over writing a public facing book.
mm-hmm,
But then a few years ago, not long after I'd turned 60,
mm,
um, this agent, and he was one of many agents who sort of darkened my door,
yeah,
but out of the blue, an email, and he's like, I've been working with blah, 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 who's written this blah, blah, blah book.
mm-hmm,
And we've been talking about the implications of it for infant sleep. And I thought, I need to find out who should write that book.
mm,
And he said, my research has led me to you.
yeah.
We started off with flattery, and it worked well. Um, but I was a bit cautious to begin with. I told him that I what needed to think about it, and I actually spent about 6 months thinking about it
Mm-hmm,
before I decided that I would have a go at writing a
mm-hmm,
public facing book. And
yeah,
I was quite keen that I wanted it to have all the science and all the research in it,
mm-hmm,
because I didn't just want to write sort of an advice guide for parents that wasn't grounded in the evidence, or the
mm-hmm,
evidence that, I'd been pursuing all of these years. So I said, if it can be a popular science type book about sleep for parents and for practitioners, then I'll do it. And I got an editor who was absolutely on board with what I wanted to do with the vision.
mm-hmm.
And it went swimmingly. So
It
um,
did.
I
Yeah.
probably should have done it years ago, but I don't think my head was in the right space. And I think
Things
perhaps,
happen when they're supposed to happen,
mhm, I
Yeah,
think perhaps
so
being, over 60, I was just looking for something to sort of capture everything that I'd learned and pass it on.
mhm. Yeah, a summation,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, having read the book recently, I was very impressed with how readable it was. So it was enjoyable to read, and yet firmly grounded in science, which
Mm,
is what I felt like some of the other books that I've read on sleep were
mm,
not as firmly
mhm,
grounded. because it is a controversial topic. And so having the science right there, the evidence to support the ideas, which in some ways it's like this is ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that doesn't fly in this day and age, right? We need
Well,
ancient wisdom bound by facts and science. Well, it depends on who you are, I suppose. Um, but yeah, so I think you achieve that beautiful balance of very readable, yet feels firmly grounded in science.
well, thank you. I
No,
was
thank
speaking with
you.
a friend recently who had been talking to another friend of hers about my book,
Hmm.
and she said the friend said, "Well, that all just sounds like common sense." And I said, "Yes, that's what it
I
is, but
know.
you've got to write it down because nobody will kind of people are bombarded with so much stuff that actually isn't common sense anymore. They
Right,
don't know how to benchmark. They can't tell what is common sense and what isn't.
right.
So yeah, I felt like, I've spent my life documenting the obvious, but
Hmm.
it needs documenting.
Yeah. Yeah, a good friend of mine years ago said, "Well, Barbara, isn't that just what we're supposed to do, nurse our babies?" And
Hmm.
I'm like, "Well,
Well,
yeah, you'd
if
think it would
everybody
be
thought
so
like you, I'd be out of a job.
straightforward." Exactly.
Yeah,
But many of us are in this work because it didn't go well for us, because we didn't have the support and research that we needed.
yeah,
And so it's wonderful that you are providing. And I will say that the book is very, it feels non-judgy. It
I
feels
tried.
like we
Hmm.
are all muddling through this
Hmm.
experience and we need
Yeah,
to figure out what works for each family. And so you just have, it's loaded with lots of suggestions. And they feel like suggestions. They don't feel like I'm telling you what to do.
telling you you've got to do that. Yeah. No, I'm
Yeah,
a firm believer in empowering parents to work out what works for them.
absolutely.
What works for one doesn't work for another. So I think
Mhm.
giving them the tools to be able to think it through is really
Right.
important to me. Yeah.
Well, and the sleep situation can look very, very different. And so this is where one of our creative, it's kind of like for me, returning to work is also like this. You have to be really creative. You have to get lots of details, like who are the players, what's happening, what are the situation in the home, and then we can, again, make those suggestions and help a
Hmm.
family tailor something, and then you try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And tweak it.
So I was thrilled that this book was published, and then I read it, and I was thrilled that it was so good. And now I'm thrilled to be doing this book group with you.
Mm.
So, what are some of the biggest things that you hope professionals get from this book?
I think the confidence to talk to parents about some of these issues that have been
Hmm.
taboo for a long time is
Hmm.
one of the things I'd like to give them sort of the tools to feel like they can have those conversations and that they
Hmm.
can answer parents' questions and they don't have to know all the answers, but
Hmm.
they can help them figure it out together.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think that's really important. And I think just seeing the evidence about the other side of some of the arguments that we're bombarded with all the time, seeing the anthropological and biological sort of side of things
Hmm.
and what babies, as you said, what babies are born expecting to have happen to them,
Hmm.
and then what doesn't happen to them, and then why things go haywire,
Right,
you know. So
right, right. The baby's behaviors make perfect sense because of what they're being challenged with.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
What do you hope that families are going to get from this book?
I hope some challenge to the ideas that they might have come to parenthood with.
Hmm.
So, I'd like to gently challenge them, challenge their
Hmm.
expectations and get them to think about their babies a bit differently and
Hmm.
their baby's needs and I think how to harmonize their needs and their baby's needs is a real um, sweet spot because so much of what we see when people are struggling with baby sleep is it's either all got to be the parents' way or it's all got to be totally uh, what the baby needs and the parent's mental health is suffering. So it's sort of how do you balance both? And, there are some things that we do that actually exacerbate that situation, that if you think about them a little bit, you could perhaps do them differently and harmonize
Mhm.
parent and baby sleep needs rather than them being a battleground.
One of the big things that I took away as both a parent and a professional was that actually it wasn't the parents' needs or the baby's needs that are often driving, it's the societal
Yeah. Hmm.
misconceptions.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's like we're trying to live up to
Yeah.
not the parent or the baby,
But some,
but
yeah,
the
some external,
society.
yeah.
And the parent and the baby are suffering because of
Hmm.
this.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you discuss that so beautifully in the book. And so I feel like that's something that I really took from it, um, and was very important. Well, so any other think about this while I give a little, I'm going to give some tidbits about the details of our book group before we say goodbye to Dr. Ball. So we're going to be doing 4 sessions for the book group. Again, the book is How Babies Sleep, a science-based guide to the first 365 days and nights by Helen L. Ball. And we're going to be having our live sessions. We'll have 4 of them. They'll be 2 hours each on Saturdays, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So 11 a.m. Eastern Time to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You're in the UK, so I don't know what time that will be for you.
It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
So in the UK, 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. And we'll be having them on October 10th, 17th, November 7th and 21st, but we will record all the sessions. So if you can't make a session, you can catch up. Before the session, we're going to have assigned readings from the book. We're going to read the entire book. That's how I started doing these book groups, because I am in several book groups and I always religiously read that book. And I wanted to read some of these books, but I knew I
Mm.
didn't have the discipline. So I started doing book groups so that I would read a book carefully and thoroughly. And so I thank all my authors for this opportunity. And so, yeah, we'll have about 2 hours of reading beforehand. We have resources and things, research articles that we want you to read as well as the book itself. And so you'll do that pre-work. We'll get together, and Helen and I will be discussing the chapter with questions intermingled for about an hour and a half. And then we'll have a breakout session where you go into a group and you discuss the clinical implications. Like, okay, what did you learn today and how are you going to utilize this either as a parent, because this is for parents or professionals, or as a professional? How are you going to share this information with what you learn? Because we don't want you to just read it and leave it. We want you to read it and then implement the ideas with it and incorporate
Mm.
them. And then we'll get back for a minute. So that's the format of our book group. We started with Making More Milk, which was a book that was also written for parents and then professionals. And it worked beautifully. We had a lot of parents come, we had many professionals come. So we're
Sounds
really
amazing.
excited. It's fun. People enjoy the format. So we're going to encourage you. So if you want more information about the book group, go to lactalearning.com under courses. That's at the top. On the drop down, you'll see book groups. And if you click on book groups, you'll see the new book group and you can get information. You can register for it there. Well, thank you for taking the time. Any last minute thoughts before we're
Well,
done?
I'm excited. I would wish it was happening sooner, but yeah, I'm very excited to be doing this. I'm going to love talking about it with people who've actually read it, because
Hmm.
usually I get to talk with people who've just bought it and would like me to
Right,
sign it.
right.
And
Yeah,
they
and
don't know what they don't know what they've bought yet. But so yeah, talking to
freshen their
people who've read it would be
minds.
brilliant. Yeah.
Right. And then my job as the host is to just help emphasize points that I think are important or ask for clarification for things that if I'm confused, probably other people are confused. And so it's just so wonderful to have the author there to really explain and expand upon the
Mm,
ideas in the book. So thank you
brilliant.
again. Thank you for joining me on this podcast, and thank you for doing the book group.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, if you are enjoying all things breastfeeding, we would love it if you could leave it a review on your favorite podcast listening device. And we thank all of you for listening. We appreciate you, and hopefully, we might see you at our book group. Take care, everybody.